philosophers, but I'm doing slightly more lecture based this time, taking philosophers on encounters, places you wouldn't expect them. And this is Deleuze in an art gallery. So Deleuze, famously postmodern thinker, and this is his take on art. So I probably ought to dedicate it to the BBC and the current. Oh, it's gone. Anyway, never mind, you'll get it. What's the point of art? Deleuze asks. And in that typical, slightly obscure way, he'll say it is to forge percepts and affects, which probably means nothing. But let me explain. Have you ever been on the hills just above Exeter and looked out and suddenly seen the sea and the sunlight stand and think the name of an artist? Think your name of your own artist. I do it all the time. Or see a storm and think of John Martin. That is the purpose, or at least the initial purpose, of visual art. It gives us the luminous world of colour. It allows us to locate ourselves in a landscape that is bigger than ourselves. It gives us first colour, perspective. It makes shadow different. It makes refraction and light powerful, pungent. So that after Van Gogh, you can't quite see the mistiness of shade or the way light bounces one against the other in the same way. If that is the purpose of visual art, what about written art? Again, Deleuze has a high ideal for it. It is to make affects. But what is an affect? Well, again, I'll ask you a question. Have you ever stood, when you were young and in love for the first time, on a high moor and felt the wind sweep through you and laugh? Because you're sure you are Cathy and Heathcliff, there alone in love on the rind of time. That is an affect. That feeling of being caught up in something bigger than yourself as you feel. And the joy, then, of a novelist or a poet is to create such affects. I'll give you another example. Every time I'm caught up in family politics, it happens more times than I would like it, I always think of Jane Austen and the way she gives you kind of a map to navigate your feelings. Or one more. If you think about the work of Dickens, he was a writer who spent his life thinking about different sorts of pride. Every book, he gives you another sort and another and another. From his first useful thing about esteem, Pickwick Papers, to the towering majesty that is Great Expectations. It's all about pride. So that when you feel pride, you enter in, if you were, the ecosystem of Dickens. And if an affect doesn't exist, that sometimes happens. If you can't quite put your emotion, if you can't quite place it, if you don't know who you are, if you don't know who it's made you, sometimes it's surprisingly difficult to feel, to know what it is you're feeling, to know whether you're, the big noisy emotions, the happy and the sad. But how about all those whispering emotions, ones that have gone so quickly, that mix so many things? It is then the purpose, for Deleuze, of written art, initially, to create, to give us affects, to tell us what we feel. And yet, of course, it didn't stay that way. Very soon, painters wanted to start to paint emotions, and Writers started expanding what they could write about. They started to write about not people so much as landscapes, where the feelings and the landscapes were caught in the same impure crystal. A rhythm that started with modernism and got faster and faster and faster with postmodernism. But why? Again, I'll give it to you as Deleuze would say it. It is because we are learning what it means to live without God, to live without the soul, to be a spirit. But what on earth does that mean? Well, let me put it this way. Think of a modern dilemma, such as genetic modification. Here is a debate that involves politics, nature, capitalism, consumerism, how we feel about ourselves, individual responsibility, individual choice, the fate of nations and of nature. Is it any wonder then we find it so difficult to comprehend it in a morality system that is founded on individuals? Isn't the point about genetic modification that it isn't about the individual? And that we can't contain it in a political system that is founded again on an individual vote? The point is that it doesn't work that way. The point is about our modern world is that the idea of individuals, the idea of the old novelistic inns, etc., struggled so hard to create, doesn't work very well to understand it. So how are we going to understand it? How are you going to create the kind of models that might understand it? That, for Deleuze, is the point about art. The point about art is that it creates wonderful crystal engines for understanding how you are not quite just yourself, how you are not a soul riveted into a body, in a prison of bone and flesh, that you are closer to a pagan manes, a spirit, caught up in oscillations, caught up in rhythms, in currents that run between us all, gathered into affects, gathered into percepts that we all see, into affects that we all feel, and in feel in changing what they are. It is that Deleuze says art gives you. It is that hope, a hope we need so much, else we have the fate of pagan manes, that for all their ability, the spirits that ran between people, for all their ability to make mischief, to give people their thoughts, always in the end would be taken and gathered by the obsidian-eyed God and judged in Hades' halls. A fate that could be even our own.